Okay. Again. Regular scheduled board meeting for October of the Board of Education is being called to order. If you would, please join me in a moment of silent prayer. Thank you. Amen. Would you mind rising and showing respect to our country by saying the pledge of allegiance? Salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. White, would you call the roll to establish the quorum for a meeting, please?
Deanna Bowman. Here. Brad Kelly.
Here.
Herman Kendrick.
Here.
Amy Madonna. Here. Amy Thompson. Here.
Thank you. That establishes the quorum for our board meeting. Board members, you have before you, you have the agenda before you. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
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 All in favor?
Aye.
That passage, the agenda is approved. This is our recognition time, which I've always said this is the best part of what we do here is to recognize employees, students, the public who's done something significant in support of our district. So, Mr. Gesson, would you lead us in that direction?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Kelly, Board of Education, Dr. Murphy. Very important time of the month where we do recognize all the great things going on across our school system. We have several proclamations tonight. I'll begin with the National Principals Month. I won't read the entire thing, just some highlights here. Whereas the vision, dedication, and determination of a principal provides the mobilizing force and direction behind any school effort, and whereas principals are expected to be educational visionaries, instructional leaders, assessment experts, disciplinarians, community builders, public relations practitioners, budget analysts, facility managers, and so much more, whereas principals set the academic tone for their schools. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Hoover Board of Education joins the National Association of Elementary School Principals, the American Federation of School Administrators, the National Association of Secondary School Principals, and other organizations in proclaiming the month of October is National School Principals Month. And we do have most of our principals here tonight. You can see the sponsoring agencies I just listed. Here's all of our fabulous principals across our 16 campuses. Would all of you come forward and we'll take a group photo? Let's give them a round of applause, please. Is that everybody?
Ready? 3, 2, 1. See one more. Awesome. Thank you.
Before you get away, I want to just say to our principals, thank you. Thank you for the leadership that you provide in your building, and thank you for helping me learn and grow and supporting us. We do have one new principal in the group, and that is Dr. Stacy Stocks. Stacy, would you step forward? This week she successfully defended her dissertation. Carrie Pate, would you come and join her? They did some collaborative research together and defended dissertations this week. And Carrie, we're awfully proud of you too. And while I'm on the doctor roll, let me acknowledge Bob Lowry. Bob, would you come up? He has recently completed his doctorate also. And it's only been about a year ago, Dr. Lamar, you completed yours, and I think we acknowledged you, but it still feels good, doesn't it? So, principals, please know that I'm so grateful to you. I learn from you on a regular basis. I appreciate you. And as you continue your studies, I'm so proud. And to our recent doctors, congratulations.
Also, the month of October, later this month, the week of October 22nd through the 26th, is Alabama School Bus Safety Week. Obviously, statewide initiative directed by the State Department of Education. We'll run a nice little drone video we have of our buses here leaving the operations center there off of Buccaneer Drive. Hoover City Schools inspections, bus inspections consistently rank among the highest in Alabama. I believe it was the tail end of last school year where we had Mr. Bradford and some of his mechanics here to recognize them for that accolade. We transport upwards of 6,500, maybe 7,000 students per day, with the staff ranging anywhere from 150, 160, 170, approximately 130 different bus routes, a very complex operation. Total annual mileage in excess of 1 million miles here in the city of Hoover, roughly 55 to 60 square mile city. So a lot of neighborhoods traversed by our buses, a lot of expert work done there. So we give them a round of applause for what they do.
We have Jeremy. Do we have any other bus drivers with us tonight? Would y'all come up and let us acknowledge you too?
Absolutely. Right. The next proclamation, Alabama Statewide Parent Visitation Month. Whereas October is the time of year when the Alabama State Department of Education conducts a campaign regarding parental engagement, and whereas all educators recognize the importance of parent engagement and visitation and their effects on school environments and student learning, and whereas all school systems use the month of October and indeed the entire school year to encourage parents and custodial parents to visit their local schools, and whereas research has indicated that parental visitation and encouragement results in higher test scores, better attendance, enhancements in behaviors, and so forth, now therefore be it proclaimed that the Hoover Board of Education joins the Alabama State Department of Education and other organizations in proclaiming the month of October as Alabama Statewide Parent Visitation Month. And as part of this, we reached out to school principals to get a list of all they do to engage parents, and there's just a partial amount of how we get parents in the schools throughout the year across our 17 campuses. So when I created this into a word cloud, next slide, you can see some of the larger concepts that arose, and I thought it was interesting, the two V words, visitation and volunteers, there in the center. So that was a recurrent theme. We could not do what we do without parent volunteers. So kudos to those here in the audience. Any parent volunteers among us, or anyone who regularly, any parents here? Can we do it? Parents, please stand. Okay. Next proclamation, National School Lunch Week. This year it is October 15th through the 19th. I believe that is week after next. Whereas the National School Lunch Program has served our nation admirably for more than 60 years through advanced practices in nutrition education, and whereas the National School Lunch Program is dedicated to the health and well-being of our nation's children, and whereas the National School Lunch Program has been joined through the years by many other excellent child feeding programs, and there exists evidence of continued need for nutrition education and awareness. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Hoover Board of Education joins the National School Lunch Program, the Alabama State Department of Education, and other organizations in proclaiming the week of October 15th through the 19th, 2018 as National School Lunch Week. So you can see there, that's the official logo. This year's theme is Lots to Love. If you're active on social media, their hashtag is right there, hashtag NSLW18. As part of this week, and I believe it started 2, maybe 3 years ago, our C&P department conducts the Leaders Serve Day. I believe our superintendent, our Board of Education, mayor, and city council will be spread out across our various lunchrooms to serve the students and get a glimpse into C&P life. So any of our C&P staff in the audience, please stand. And Ms. Bonner and Ms. Nura, if you would come forward, and we'll do a group photo. Linda Bonner is our Child Nutrition Director. Ms. Bonner is our Associate Director of the Child Nutrition Program. Obviously, children are fed, they can't learn, so it's a very important process.
1, 2, 3. Yep, good.
All right. So the next slide kind of coalesces very nicely with National School Lunch Week. Alliance for a Healthier Generation, a statewide, or actually national organization, just released its 50-state honorees. We had 7 schools here in Hoover City Schools to achieve recognition this school year. You can see their names there on the screen: Greystone, Rocky Ridge, Spain Park, Bluff Park, Deer Valley, Gwen, and River Chase. We've had the majority of our schools achieve some degree of recognition through the Alliance for a Healthier Generation. So Tricia Nura is going to explain very briefly a little bit about that.
Thank you, Jason. I just wanted to say that this was a collaborative approach. So when all those schools are listed, it encompasses the whole school environment. So it's not just nutrition services that does play a large role, but there's the school health and safety policies and environment. So health education, physical education, and other physical activity programs, health promotion for staff, and then family and community involvement. So when we applied for these recognitions, it was all encompassing. So everybody had to be on board. So it's a huge achievement for us to receive this. And like Jason has said, most of our schools have at one time been named one of America's healthiest schools. So thank you.
One more round of applause. Another great item I had the privilege of promoting earlier this month was Bluff Park Elementary School being named an Alabama Bicentennial School. This was a year-long effort led by Governor Kay Ivey. You can see the photo there, Dr. Terry Lamar on the far right. I believe we have some other staff there in that. Is that the governor's mansion or is that the State House? Where was that, Dr. Lamar?
The State House.
State House, okay. So that was back in early October. Governor Ivey announced 200 schools to be selected as official Alabama Bicentennial Schools. Again, Bluff Park Elementary was one of those schools. You see the 2 names above the photo, Becky Vilchek and Charlie Ann Sanderson. Are those 2 among us tonight? Would you please come forward along with any other administrative staff from Bluff Park Elementary School?
Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Awesome.
And just a little more on that program. Obviously, it was in conjunction with Alabama's 200th anniversary as a state, and a total of 400 proposals came in, 200 schools selected, and each received $2,000 grants. And again, each of them got to travel to Montgomery to meet with the governor and be a part of the pomp and circumstance. So very proud of Bluff Park. Our final accolade of the night, very big, represents Superintendent Dr. Murphy, who just received a very notable statewide and regional accolade. And Board President, Mr. Kelly is gonna give us a little bit of insight on that.
Most of you probably know District 5 is over the mountain, and you can correct me, but it's a big region. It's where we are. It's a circle in the District 5. This is a significant award. There's a lot of school children here and a lot of needed leadership, and we have an outstanding leader. When we travel to Montgomery or maybe to be South Alabama at state seminars, we get to hear conversations among other superintendents with Dr. Murphy or away from her. So we are so fortunate to have you here, and this is an outstanding award. She will, by virtue of this award, go on to consideration for the state award, to my understanding. So,
Please let me say this to you. If this was not a terrific school district, if we didn't have awesome board members and school leaders and terrific teachers and bus drivers and cafeteria folks and bookkeepers and secretaries, and I'm missing some, and I'm so sorry, but the only reason I would receive a recognition is because you're doing your work well. They don't select superintendents from school districts where the district's not being successful, and the district is successful because you carry your part of the work and you do it so well. So I do thank you, and I accept that on behalf of all the terrific work you all are doing. This is as much your award and acknowledgement as mine. So thank you. You're very kind. Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
okay.
Couple of things that I'd like to do, board members. I left on my desk a folder that has your academy achievements. We did acknowledge you last week, and I'm sorry, somewhere between work session and this session I did not go to my desk to get that, but I will give that to you. Let me just again acknowledge and commend you for the work you do in earning the required hours and above with the schools association. So thank you. I know that that you've had a meeting even this last weekend that some of you attended, in December another meeting that is upcoming. So thank you all for that. Jason, would you stand for just a moment? I want to acknowledge Jason. We needed to address our website. We had challenges with its accessibility to all of our public, to include individuals that might be hearing and sight impaired and other challenges that they might have. And Jason took that task on and did lots of work to bring us in compliance. We received a letter recently from OCR that acknowledged that this school district has met all of its expectations. And Jason, in great measure, that's your work, and I want to thank you so much for all that you've done and the many other people that you've trained and worked alongside you, but may I just acknowledge you for your work. Thank you so much.
This is a time in our meetings that we invite public participation. If you do come forward, please state your name and address, the topic that you're speaking on. If you represent an organization, please let us know that. Please be reminded not to discuss good name and character of the district or an individual or an entity. We're here to listen to you. It's not a comment back from us, but we do respect the fact that people do come and speak in front of the board. Do we have anybody here that would like to speak tonight?
How are y'all doing?
Good.
Wayne Smith, Hoover employee and former Hoover resident, River Chase resident of 25 years, but I've just recently sold my house. And I would like to begin by saying that I've spent 30 years in this business staying in my pasture. I preach staying in your pasture, and my father always told me if your boss wanted your opinion, he or she would come ask you. So I'm stepping out of my pasture, and I'm not going to tell my father because he could still give me a whipping. But I want to begin by I want to thank you, because this board and Kathy Murphy did not inherit our salary schedule for our classified employees. It has been ignored really since 1988. So I want to thank you for, number one, recognizing that it is an issue that needs to be addressed. And I know the challenges associated with it. There's nothing that money can't fix. And unfortunately, there's not a machine that just cranks out money endlessly for us. But committees and you have taken time and effort to show our classified employees that they are an integral part of this school district. I work with many of them daily, and they are some of the most dedicated, wonderful employees that we have in Hoover City Schools. And it's devastating to the administrators to lose someone that we know what button to push, knob to twist, pipe to jiggle to make things work. Not only are they competent in their job, for so many of them, there's that trust that we have in them that we know that they're going to do things for our students and for our schools and our other employees. And it's just so sad that we lose them in neighboring districts. If they've worked hard and really shown their competencies and they go to another district and advance their position, we're happy for them. But when they make a lateral move to other districts for $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000, that should not be happening. So again, I don't come as a complaint. You are not ignoring this, and I appreciate every effort that you put forth in trying to correct this for our classified employees, because we cannot survive without them. So thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Carol Steiner. I'm the bookkeeper in the athletic office at Hoover High School. I live in Hoover. I'd first like to thank Tina Hancock and Michelle McKay and the committee that worked on the salary schedule proposal. I also want to thank Mary Veal. She's been working for many, many years doing research for all of us to actually even get to this point, and we appreciate all of y'all valuing what we do as employees for this school system. I'm just a spokesperson today for all the classified employees that are here. The CMP and the transportation, the bookkeeper, secretaries, you know, everyone. So I'm just speaking for them. Ironically, I plan to retire in March of 2019. I have a retirement date, so I may not benefit for any of this. So that's why I think it's kind of better coming from me, that y'all hear, you know, how we feel. My family moved to Hoover 31 years ago, and one of the main reasons we chose Hoover was because they were just talking about it in 1987, forming the school system. And so we thought that was important to our children to be in a good school system, so we chose to move to Hoover. My oldest son was in kindergarten in 1988. And so we were there on the ground floor when Hoover began. My younger son was in the first graduating class at Spain Park High School. And some of you probably know this, but he was the first Spain Park graduate hired by Hoover City Schools to be a teacher. And he did that for several years till he moved on to other employment in another state, still teaching school though. My daughter graduated from Hoover, so I've had Spain Park and Hoover. She is also an educator, and I appreciate everything all the teachers did for my children. You know, I appreciate all of them so much. I know most of you on the board because you live in Hoover, and it's important to you. This is your home, as it is mine, and you're invested in our community. You are here for us. I've worked at Hoover High School since the doors opened. Dr. Williams hired me in July of 1994, and Hoover City Schools and Hoover High School are my family. I love my job. I love the people that I get to work with every day. But we need y'all to know that the morale is very low among classified employees right now. You know, my story is very similar to everyone else here. Currently, we have 12 steps on the salary schedule for classified employees, and I've been at the top of the step raises for 13 years. 13 years without a raise, and now I bring home less, as Ms. Baumann talked about earlier, than I did 10 years ago. I bring home less money than I did 10 years ago. I'm sure you would agree there's not many people you can work at a job for 25 years and be making less money. I mean, it's really hard. At Institute, Mr. Kelly, you compared Hoover City Schools to a Fortune 500 company. We're that big and we're that good, but I've worked for a Fortune 500 company for 10 years. And we got merit raises and we got cost of living raises, you know, and we don't get that here. So once you get to the top of the steps, you're stuck. But I could have changed jobs. I could have gone to work for Vestavia or Mountain Brook or Alabaster. I had several interviews over the years with some of those school systems. When it came down to it, I didn't want to go anywhere else. I wanted to work at Hoover High School. I wanted to be there. You know, I loved it. So for the past 10 years, I chose, instead of changing jobs and getting a higher paying job, I got a second job. So for the past 10 years, I've been working 2 jobs to make ends meet. I know a lot of these people do the same thing. It's not just me. This is not about me. I know many, many of these people who work 2 and 3 jobs because they love Hoover and they want to stay here. So thankfully, we made it this far. You know, after all the years of, I met with Dr. Williams, as several of us did, Andy Craig and Dr. Reese, and they were all, you know, very nice and seemed concerned, but we always got put off. So now y'all finally, you know, we're here and we really appreciate, you know, your consideration for this because it is very important. It's important to retirement, as Ms. Tosney said. You know, I'm going to have to keep doing my second job when I retire, obviously, but, you know, that's fine. But the salaries proposed by Ms. Hancock and the committee, you know, were approved in the budget and they are sustainable. Our current salaries are not competitive, as we talked about before, so we keep losing good employees. We really, you know that, and the bookkeepers, I can speak for the bookkeepers in particular, the applicants we're getting for open jobs, you know, aren't quite what they used to be because, you know, people are looking at those salaries. We know other bookkeepers in Vestavia and other systems that say, hey, we would come to Hoover, but we're not coming for a $10,000 to $12,000 cut in our pay. So, you know, we could get some good employees. So, again, I appreciate everything y'all are doing. Mr. Kelly, again, when Dr. Murphy was approved for her raise back in May, you said we're committed to paying whatever's necessary to have strong leadership. And we've done that. It's great, and we appreciate that. You also said you're committed to compensate all employees of Hoover City Schools in a manner that attracts top quality people. So if y'all would do that, we would really appreciate it. And hopefully we can expect a vote on this proposal as soon as possible, as you mentioned. Maybe not tonight, but in November. So thank you very much.
I'm Alicia Turner. My address is Magnolia Trace, Hoover. I have a son at Hoover High School and a daughter. We withdrew from Hoover High School on September 7th. My topic tonight is students with high functioning autism, and specifically the high school level. In June of 2018, Dr. Kathy Murphy said, we don't want to just talk about having to be compliant with the law. We want to talk about getting it right and getting it right for all children. Unfortunately, my husband and I are here tonight because Hoover High School was not compliant with the law and did not get it right for our daughter. I fear there are many others like her, either underperforming in the school district or have left completely because of the lack of imagination by district employees or a desire to think outside the box to meet unique needs of students. While there may be an abundance of programs and curriculum opportunities for elementary school students with autism, our experience has been that at the high school level, the needs of our autistic daughter were not met. Her twice exceptionalness was denied, and we as her parents were not involved in the decision-making process protected under IDEA law through IEPs, and in our case, her 504. In February of 2018, we realized there was a possibility that we were going to relocate from Denver, Colorado to Hoover, Alabama. At that time, we started researching schools for our daughter. In June of 2018, we enrolled a rising junior at Hoover High School with 28 college-level credits from Colorado's public school system, their current concurrent enrollment program. She had been a full-time college student on Aurelia's campus in downtown Denver. She was well on her way to an Associate of Physics by the time she graduated from high school in 2020. On Friday, September 7th, I withdrew a 16-year-old defeated young lady that was begging us to let her drop out of high school and take the GED. We are not really sure how we got there. Hoover High School recognized her college-level work as mostly junior and senior level coursework. They found that she had not met some of the state's freshman and sophomore level requirements. We immediately requested substitutions for some of those classes. For example, she has taken English Comp 1 and English Comp 2 at the college level and passed both of those with A's. Hoover High School expected her to go back and take sophomore English. We requested a literature class from Just State. Hoover said no multiple times and claimed the state limited what they could do. We believe this is not true. There's a process at the state level that you can request a substitute class. I also found in the English crosswalk that if a student took English Comp 1 and English Comp 2 their junior year, they could take a British literature class at community college their senior year. Even though we requested it, we were not given this opportunity. Maddie was also required to take career prep. And I have more of a statement, but my time is up.
Dr. Turner, if you want a couple of minutes, please.
Thank you. We requested that the class be differentiated to be more specific to Maddie's unique situation and focus on a four-year college plan. We also believe that the state allows this through their gifted guidelines. In order to meet the economics requirement for high school, Hoover High was requiring Maddie to take two three-credit economics courses at Jeff State, which is the equivalent to 2 years of high school economics, or 2 Carnegie units. Spain Park only required 1. The state requires 0.5 Carnegie units to graduate high school. Spain Park and Hoover High came up with 2 very different plans for our daughter to graduate. When we asked to follow Spain Park's plan because it was more feasible and appropriate, we were also told no. We are still waiting for an explanation from the district as to why there was such a discrepancy between the 2 plans. At the height of our frustration, we requested a 504 meeting for our daughter to modify an existing 504. When we arrived at the meeting, we were denied the collaborative environment that is protected by the federal government and discovered that Hoover High School and the district met the day prior to determine what they were going to allow. For a student with high-functioning autism, a diagnosis that is protected under IDEA, parents and students are allowed a collaborative meeting to determine what is best for the student. We took the documentation about the 504 meeting to the district, and we are still waiting an explanation as to why we were not allowed participation in the 504 process. When we withdrew Maddie on September 7th, her withdrawal paperwork even stated that she did not have a 504, even though we had provided it multiple times and her former high school had sent it. Public school is not a one-size-fits-all. What works for one student might not work for another. The federal government has recognized this and requires schools to address those needs in a variety of ways, including IEPs and 504s. Specifically, in spring of 2017, the Supreme Court reached a unanimous decision on Andrew F. versus Douglas County that involved an autistic student. I've included a few of Chief Justice John Roberts' statements for the opinion. An IEP must aim to enable the child to make progress. The essential function of an IEP is to set out a plan for pursuing academic and functional advancement. And the degree of progress contemplated by the IEP must be appropriate in light of the child's circumstances. The goals may differ, but every child should have the chance to meet challenging objectives. These IEP procedures emphasize collaboration among parents and educators and require careful consideration of the child's individual circumstances. And this one is the most impactful to us because we experienced it. For children with disabilities, receiving instruction that aims so low would be tantamount to sitting idly awaiting the time when they were old enough to drop out. And those are all from Chief Justice John Roberts. In June of 2018, the family of Andrew F. was awarded $1.3 million because the school district refused to educate the student at a level and in an environment that he was showing significant gains. We believe we provided Hoover City with enough information to show that Maddie was twice exceptional, could function successfully at the college level, and struggled significantly in a traditional high school setting. Hoover High refused to allow her back into that environment, requiring multiple lower-level courses. On September 5th, in our 504 meeting, we asked the director why Maddie did not parallel the Andrew F. case, and we are still awaiting that explanation. Hoover claims she was making progress, but Maddie herself pointed out that progress is not sending her back to 9th grade. What we most want from you tonight is consideration changing this policy to permit students who are struggling in the regular classroom to have more flexibility in their public education options, especially when the equivalent course is significantly more rigorous than the high school level requirement. This costs you, the school district, nothing. Unlike in Colorado, Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida, in Alabama, the cost of dual enrollment is borne entirely to the family or private sponsors. This policy eliminates lower income families from participating in dual enrollment and often affects underrepresented minorities. Hoover High School spends just under $11,000 a year per student to educate our daughter in full-time concurrent enrollment at Jefferson State. That would cost $4,800 total for the year. To offer one student one AP class, the cost is $1,600. But to offer one student one 3-credit concurrent enrollment class, your cost is $480. Both would count for one Carnegie unit towards high school. We're also requesting stricter oversight for the 504 and IEP process in Hoover School District. We were denied a 504 meeting, and if it can happen to us, it can happen to anyone in the district. Our third request is that you consider convening a task force to investigate the needs of the growing population of children and adolescents with high-functioning autism and twice exceptional students. What has worked in other states include charter schools, concurrent enrollment, university models open to homeschool students. In Colorado, we have the choice between a STEM-focused charter school, classical curriculum, liberal arts programs, gifted and talented schools. All of these options were available through and funded by the public school system. There is research that shows high-functioning autistic students thrive in the project-based learning model used in STEM charter schools. High-functioning autistic students are often diagnosed with generalized anxiety, and once they enter high school, the constant conversation about ACT, SAT, AP testing, as well as college acceptance, and everything counts, deters them from doing challenging activities. Temple Grandin speaks on autism through books and presentations. Schools and society need to embrace her recommendations. We almost always speak of autistic children, never of autistic adults, as if such children never grow up or were somehow mysteriously spirited off the planet, out of society. Children and adolescents with high-functioning autism become your NASA scientists and your Google engineers. They carry incredible intellectual potential, some of which we may never realize if we fail to adapt our learning environments to their special needs. I wish that Hoover City had embraced their incredible opportunity to have the first student in Alabama to graduate high school with an Associate of Physics. I wish they had seen this as an opportunity to expand their programs, create some new policies, and explore ways to meet individual needs of the student. They did not, but I encourage you to do that now. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Okay, anyone else?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Tinney and my husband Mike, and we live on Shanwick Place in Hoover. The reason that we are here today is to ask a consideration of disciplinary imposed on my daughter, who is a freshman at Spain Park High School. She previously was inducted into the Junior National Honor Society her 8th grade year at Berry Middle, and she was accepted into the Health Science Academy at Spain Park, also taken pre-AP English and Biology, and was a junior varsity cheerleader as a freshman. On September the 8th, my daughter sent a private video to a friend of her friend singing a song. The person that received the video goes to Hoover High School. The song was about a white singer and a black singer who switched bodies and sang each other's songs. The Hoover student posted it in the D1 group chat. Immediately, nasty messages were being sent to my daughter's friend. The friend replies, "It was just a song. Why are you getting upset?" My daughter's friend became angry at the comments and remarks, and they posted another video to a private message to a kid from Thompson High School. The video did include some poor language and was in poor taste in our opinion. The Thompson kid screen recorded that video and shared it with others. There was a third video. The third video says, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to get beat up." My daughter then says, "Yes, you might. I can't be involved in this," and the video ended. My daughter's friend was contacted. This occurred on a Saturday evening, by the way. My daughter's friend was contacted by Spain Park's office to not come to school on that Monday. We received a call from the assistant principal around 11 a.m. telling us that they were getting statements from my daughter. We later learned there was actually an incident at the Spain Park football game on September the 7th, prior to the videos being made. The Friday night incident involved some Spain Park employee and an African-American football player's parents. We later learned that the booster parent attached 2 of those videos along with a photograph of my daughter's friend and distributed it to 217 Spain Park football players, parents, and some employees of the Hoover City School. This was sent at approximately 7:34 a.m. on that Monday morning. Later that week, my husband and I had 2 meetings, one with the assistant principal at Spain Park and the principal later. During that meeting, we were told that my daughter was going to be punished at a level 3 infraction, resulting in the following. It's a 3.17 of the Code of Conduct. Another offense which is reasonably likely to cause harm to persons or property or seriously disrupt the education process. We were then told that her imposed discipline action would be as follows: 180 days, school days at alternative school. My husband and I believed that was excessive, so we began the appeal process for the following reasons. We felt that 180 days goes into next school year and would seem very excessive. This largely affects her education, and the videos were not made on school property with a school device or sent to anyone at Spain Park by them. There was also no intent to harm anyone, nor were there threats made. We received the results of the appeal, that they would be treated as one infraction, resulting in 54 days at alternative school, which is not an option in the Code of Conduct, and a project for community service. We are here today at the Mercy requesting a reconsideration of this infraction for the following reasons. The actions of the Booster Club parent identifying a minor also included a demand of expulsion of that child. That was sent with harm and intent. The email distributed by the Booster parent, email distribution list disrupted the Monday morning, along with the investigation from the Friday night football game incident that did occur on school premises. Our daughter or her friend distributed a video with the intent to harm, nor posted it openly. However, the parent did. The videos were taken in a private setting in our neighborhood. The infraction 3, according to the Code of Conduct, is 45 days, not 54. My daughter has also earned her spot in a health science academy that will likely not continue. She will not be allowed to take any pre-AP tests or quizzes, but can do the assignments on her own time in efforts to try to make it up. To our knowledge, the Booster Club mom has had no disruption. Who's provided this disruption has no consequences. In fact, she's still on the distribution list for the football program. The videos were in poor taste and with inappropriate language, but not threatening. We have several emails forwarded to us since then from the distribution list that shows an atmosphere that could be perceived as racism and precludes the Spain Park campus. We believe our daughter and her friend are being treated as if they and her friend and their activities were the sole source of that disruption. I have brought copies of those emails that I could share and leave for you guys. In summary, we feel the school system has applied rules arbitrarily and impulsively to the situation. In fact, the school system has no right or reason to apply the sanctions here. The matter did not occur at school grounds or in a school function. It's a matter that wholly occurred outside of the system. As a result of the action of an adult in publishing this person within the school system, my daughter's safety was compromised, and the rights to my daughter have been compromised for her education and potentially damaged forever by the school system. I'm not aware again of any action taken by that adult or the authorities, even though my child has been in danger and put in false light. Furthermore, the actions of this adult are only involved in this system, have been with this situation as such, no action taken against my daughter's school system's own rules. If the action against my daughter are not rescinded, then we have only one recourse to protect our daughter and her education, and to seek an injunction with the courts of jurisdiction and seek any and all damages that may be available. I would like to thank everyone that was part of the appeal process. I know it was a hard one for us. We realized that there were several competing interests in making that determination, but our position as a parent is we want to be fair and reasonable and let the alleged infraction fit the consequence. A level 3 infraction results in 45 days of alternative school. The time out of school literally began September the 10th. 45 days from there puts her back at school November the 9th. We are requesting that you consider that as any means to help us and have her go back to her class schedule, which currently has been completely reworked, and she's been removed from her academy and her pre-AP classes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else tonight? Okay. Dr. Murphy, we'll go into action on it.
Yes, board members, you have before you, the minutes for the regular board meeting September 11 and the special call board meeting on September 25. I request your approval.
Do I have a motion to adopt the superintendent's recommendation on minutes? A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's adopted.
You also have before you personnel action items, and I request your approval of the personnel report.
Do I have a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation on personnel actions? Second. Any questions? All in favor? Passes. Thank you.
If I could acknowledge anyone who's just been approved on the personnel list, if you principals, if you have anyone on the list, or I do want to acknowledge Dr. Terry Lamar, who has just been named as our Director of Equity and Educational Initiative. Dr. Lamar, thank you. Huge loss for our Bluff Park community, but we'll work diligently to support Bluff Park. Are there other individuals in the room who are just approved on the list? Principals, do you know of anyone? Dr. Simmons, mental health specialist? Okay. All right, thank you so much. So next we have business actions, and I'm gonna ask Tina if she would share with us monthly financials for August, our cash disbursements for August, and payroll September 2018.
Yes, board, before you, you have the summary financial statements and the general purpose financial statements based on reconciled bank statements through the month of August for fiscal year 2018. For the FY18 budget, 102.2% of budget revenue has been received for the 11 months ended August 31st, 2018. The variance as compared to the prior years is favorable $5 million. This variance is attributed to an increase in tax receipts and state funding sources. The results of operations represent 11 months of activity. Approximately 92% of budget will be anticipated to have been spent for recurring expenditures. General fund expenditures are 91.7% of budget and $174,900 less than the July period for FY17. General fund expenditures year to date are $6.5 million more than July 17 as a result of the purchase of River Chase Middle, River Chase Career Center architect fees, Hoover High Band Room, Greystone Playground, Gwen Structural Foundation renovation, high school turf and track projects. Increased revenues have offset this increase in expenditure so that we have not touched our savings or reserve. Special revenue fund expenditures reflect 11 months of activity where
or 101.9% of budget, which is offset by 106% of budget revenues. Special revenue expenditures, $926,760 year-to-date, more than the comparable period in FY17 due to travel and staff development, purchase food, instructional software, and classroom instructional supplies. Our cash disbursements for August 2018 are $3,854,763. Payroll for September 18 is $7,720,218.41.
I do have a question. We discussed the bonds, hedging the bonds possibly until, I believe that's a term, until September 19. We had more conversation or?
Actually, at the conference, the financial advisor was there, so he and I talked a little bit. He and I are gonna try to talk tomorrow and try to answer the questions that you sent. He said he's already got those answered, but he does wanna go over those with me before he sends those out. So we're looking at that, and the rates have moved just a little bit on us, so it is imperative that we do something before the December meeting, because we are looking at rates significantly moving and we're not gonna have the savings. So we're hoping to bring for you a recommendation in November.
Board members, I recommend your approval of the monthly financial, cash disbursements, and payroll for September.
Do you have a motion to approve the business sections tonight? A second?
Second.
All in favor? This passes. Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Then we got a highway.
Yes, board members, last month you approved Legacy Lane as the name of the road coming into Hoover High School. Unfortunately, 911 has asked us to revisit that because I believe there's a Legacy Street and or Legacy something. And so as not to create any confusion for 911, which we certainly would never want to do, I've spoken to Mr. Hewlin and asked if he would go back and take a look at the second highest voted for street name, and that is Champions Way. And so if you approve my recommendation to name the road Champions Way, you'll be rescinding our earlier vote, which was Legacy Lane, and approving Champions Way. I regret to have to bring this back to the table, but that is my recommendation.
Thank you. Do you have a motion to approve the new name Champions Way? So, do a second. Now, I ask questions. Does the public have any opinion here? It was a democratic process up until Mr. Westhoven and 911 said no. And I will say, Mr. Westhoven's a very good friend of the district, and he was on board with Dr. Murphy, and we found out 911, which is a safety issue, so that's why we go with this one if the board so approves. All in favor? No opposed? Okay, it's Champions Way. Mr. Hewlin, I hope you're still here. That's okay with you?
Yes, fine.
Thank you very much.
Next, board members, we have delegates for AASB Annual Convention. As you all know, we always select and approve delegates for AASB, and so I want to defer to you, and if I may, to you, Mr. Kelly, for any comments on that.
Okay, thanks. The AASB has their December, it's their annual assembly. By their charter, they have delegates that vote on policy changes or their new policy manual. By district size, we get 3 delegates. So Ms. Baumann and myself serve on AASB appointed committees, so we're going to be at the assembly for this function anyway. So by seniority, I'd like to nominate Ms. Tosney, Ms. Baumann, and myself to serve. This is about a 45-minute meeting. It's during, again, the AASB convention in December. So, and the policy manual will be public to anyone that wants to see it. Let's see, how do I do this as a nominee myself?
Board members, I'd like to recommend to you the approval of our 3 members as identified by Mr. Kelly.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the delegates?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
On fire?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
We have some information reports. There is a proposed policy revision. Dr. Simmons, do you have that information with you?
Ms. McKay attended a meeting with the State Department, and we need to increase the amount for the bid to, is it 20,000, Ms. McKay? I don't remember.
I believe it's
It went from
250.
250,000 to 500,000.
That is correct, yes.
Thank you.
From 150,000 to 250,000, and board members, again, we're not requesting.
500?
No, it's
A hundred and fifty, not to, so please let me read it. The revision is highlighted below. The board will request proposals for those professional service contracts excluding any architectural and engineering services that are exempt under state procurement laws if the contracts exceed, it has been 150, it will now be 250,000. From 150,000 to 250,000, and will be paid from federal or child nutrition program funds. So it's a strikeout of the 150,000 to 250,000, not asking your approval, and we can certainly make sure that we continue to discuss if there are questions. We will move this to an actionable item at next month. Board members, as you know, and many in our audience attended a work session where we talked about salary schedule proposal for classified employees. I appreciate the opportunity to just make some comments at that meeting. We appreciate the patience and the thoughtfulness of our classified employees. May I say again how exceptionally valued and respected you are, and how we look forward to continuing to review this proposed salary schedule. I know that a lot of work and time and energy has gone into this, and we're grateful. I will also say to you that our board has been extremely thoughtful as it's looked at, worked through, and addressed this matter. And so please know that you're respected, appreciated, and in short order, to be determined by the board and myself, we'll place that on the agenda. I certainly heard during work session that it could be as early as and very possible for the November board meeting. And so if there's further discussion for that, we do have it on our agenda for any further conversation.
We said in the work session, thank you for your patience, the employees, we mean that. And it's our deficiency for not being able to absorb all of this that quickly, but I hope you understand what we are studying. We're not taking it, it's taken very seriously.
Just for those of you who may not have been here for the work session, we did talk for almost the entire hour on priorities and the salary schedule and what that means to us and our district moving forward. With that said, I'm not sure if anyone has any other comments to make right now. But please, if you were not here, go back and watch the work session. It was live streamed.
Certainly appreciate Wayne Smith's observations and comments, and Carolyn Steiner's also this evening, so thank you. I would like to ask that we address the CIPA compliance with Brian Phillips.
So quick point of privilege if I can. Two things I should have given Jason. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And then it's also National Cybersecurity Month from the Homeland Security. They don't get a color or anything. But it does bring me to the next point. So as part of our E-rate compliance to get federal funding for a lot of different technology things, every year we have to make a public announcement that we are CIPA compliance. That's the Child Internet Protection Act, and state that we get this exactly right. We put protection measures in place that block or filter internet access to pictures that are obscene, pornography, or harmful to minors. In addition, it's required that schools must provide education to minors about appropriate online behavior, including interacting with other individuals on social networking websites, chat rooms, and cyberbullying awareness and response. I won't talk about how we do that because of the things that could give away the different tools we use, but I will say that we're actively doing that and we have multiple measures in place. Questions?
Thank you for the job you're doing, and your staff, Kelly, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but we do know that I think you were up all night one night.
72 hours straight.
72 hours straight, the staff and Brian, just because there was a situation, so they had to reboot probably the wrong word, but reprogram the.
Reformat.
Reformat. You know, that's more serious than that. But just a lot of dedication and taking it very, very seriously.
Have an amazing guys, girls. Thank you.
Terrific department, thank you. Dr. Dotson, would you share with us academic report, please?
Here we go. Give me just 1 second, let me go. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure once again to have this opportunity to talk about our academic results, our instructional results for the last year. It's an honor for me that this will be my last such presentation to you. So those of you who know how much I love spreadsheets, that does strike me hard. But so I do look forward to this conversation. This is my typical disclaimer that this is unofficial local analysis of data. The state has pushed back the release of its official data in this new state report card era until December. Makes it a little more difficult for us to pull the data together in a way that helps us be predictive of that, but we want you to have as much information as you can as soon as you have it. Two things that will be different when the state data comes out. The state identifies only full academic year students, students who were with us at the 20th day last year and also at the end of the year at the same school. And we do not have that identification from the state yet. So my data is going to be result on all the students at the schools who took the test. The state could still change category weights and include or exclude certain categories. They made several changes in November of last year that were unexpected, and that could happen again, although I hope it doesn't. Looking at the state accountability and what it's going to look like for this year, these are the 6 categories that, as of today, will be included. Academic growth and achievement. Although you'll see both of those, we had a major change in the assessment. 2017, that was the last year that our students took the Aspire test in the 3rd through 8th grades and the 10th grade of high school. This year, the state has had us rely on our Global Scholar Scantron assessments, which we had already been giving voluntarily for several years. At 2 points of the year, we give them the fall and the winter, but not the spring. And so now, starting this year, we give that test at fall, winter, and spring. And for high schools, their major assessment is resting on the ACT in the 11th grade. College and career readiness and graduation rate have not changed in their state definitions. Chronic absenteeism was a late add last year. We found that out very late in the cycle that all of our students who were absent more than 15 days during the school year would be counted as a strike against us. This year, a brand new category has also been added at the last minute called English Learner Proficiency. This is not an arbitrary add. The state had to add it in order to be ESSA compliant with the U.S. Department of Education. But it's been a confusing additional information at the last minute. And again, information that we did not know would be included during the school year. We've only found out after the fact. As part of our strategic plan, we have this objective to develop local academic accountability benchmarks that support and are understood by stakeholders, but are not dependent on state and federal requirements. One of the real frustrations of dealing with this over the last few years has been the pace at which both at the federal and the state level changes have been made that have made any kind of comparison very, very difficult to make. The assessments have changed, the rules have changed, so we're trying to identify some things that even when the tests change, even when the state or feds change the categories, we can still rely on some comparable benchmarks. So in looking at our data tonight, I'm going to show you, in addition to the state measures, I'm going to show you what we've been looking at this year in terms of our local focus for Hoover. That consideration needs to continue under the oversight of Dr. Murphy and Dr. Lamar, and which I'll help as much as I can. But I think in terms of looking down the road at additional local measures and changes, I think this will be a very important step for us in terms of communicating accountability. Academic growth. with the students growing at a rate exceeding the 50th percentile, and also with achievement, students performing on or above grade level at the 50th percentile. I'm going to flip screens here to go back to educational statistics for just a minute and talk about the normal curve. When you talk about a standardized test, this is what the results will always look like when you look at a national population. If a test isn't producing half the students, missing half the questions half the time, it's not a standardized test, and it will be reformatted until the results match this curve. So we have to remember that these are the expected results of a standardized test. What we hope for in Hoover is that we can skew that curve in the positive direction as much as possible. We would prefer that most of our students are in the upper 50 percentile. Now, if we have too many students in that upper percentile, we're cheating. So we have to make sure that we don't stretch the Lake Wobegon effect too far. But at the same time, we do have this expectation that we're going to have our population skewed in the positive direction, because we hope we're preparing our students better, giving them a better result than the typical normal national population. So if we go back to that local data focus, because all of these standardized assessments will give us that percentile data, even if the assessment changes, if we keep watching what happens to that size of the population in the upper 50th percentile group, we'll have a steady measure that we can kind of see how the population is moving, both in terms of growth and achievement. We also expand our Scantron use of data farther than the state has. We go from 2nd to 10th grade so that we can see how students are doing, give them that practice before they get to that all-critical 3rd grade assessment for the first time. And we carry through 10th grade so that we can see how our students are doing as they transition into high school. We use the same measure for chronic absenteeism. College and career readiness, we prefer to look at our graduates instead of the entire 4-year cohort that the state uses. Reason for that is I don't expect our non-graduates to be college or career ready. If we have non-graduates who are college and career ready, then we have a different problem. So I really think looking at the college and career readiness of our graduates is a better measure. We use the same graduation rate, and we also look at the work of our intervention services. We look at the progression of students out of that lowest quartile. How are the students in the bottom? If I go back to my curve for just a minute, if I were to look at the bottom 25% of that curve, those are typically our students who are 2 years or more behind. And those students could be special ed, they could be tier 2, tier 3, different levels of intervention. How well are we doing at moving those students out of that lowest 25%? So we use that as a measure of that kind of growth. So as we look at academic growth, as this is measured now, it's a measure of the change in the student score over the course of the school year. This changes the very definition of growth as it compared to how it was used with Aspire. Aspire measured from year to year, and Scantron actually measures within the same school year. So it makes it virtually impossible to compare that data. Also, Aspire reported that in 3 categories. Scantron does it in 4, and it divides those percentile groups up. The numbers that you'll see on the right there, the points, those are the weight values that the state gives to those different categories. So a student who scores in those upper 2 categories are going to get, if you would think of it as bonus credit, they would earn bonus credit, so the weights can actually be higher than the real number if you have a lot of students in those categories. Looking first at our local look, which is not weighted, we're just looking at the raw Scantron grades from 2nd through 10th grade. These are the percentages of students who are in that upper 50th percentile. So that is a positive skew. You do see that there's a higher growth rate there for mathematics than for reading. And that you'll see that as one of our data focuses going forward. You look at the state report card growth, well, those numbers look a whole lot better. And that's because of those weighted points and the number of students that we have in those above and far above categories. You'll see that we had a slightly lower reading weighted score last year, 98.1, and that is a 100 this year. One of the things I want to point out there is in 2017, we had 5 schools in the reading category that had a growth score over 100. This year, we had 13 schools with growth over 100. So even that's a small change, it looks like, but it's actually a dramatic improvement in that area. You can think of growth as, we're adding a lot of value to the kids while we have them here. So that's a good measure. Achievements, looking at how students are doing in terms of reaching grade level proficiencies. Here, the state kept the categories very similar to Aspire, still 4 levels, and they actually statistically smoothed the data in a way that matched it to the Aspire benchmark category distribution. So the results are very, very similar to what we saw before. You'll see we had a slight improvement in reading from 58.7 to 59.6. That would be Aspire being compared to Scantron. And in mathematics, a slight drop of 0.4% from 68.8 to 68.4. That's the percentage of students in the upper half of that normal curve. Looking at the state report card, basically we had an 82 and 81.9 in 2017, and we'll have an 82 again. Again, those categories were statistically matched so that the distributions would be similar. College or career readiness, the graduates who meet at least one college or career readiness indicator, that's our local definition, and that definition yields us a number of 89.4%, increase of a little over 1% from last year. The percentage of students who are graduates who are college or career ready. If we look at the state measure, that's going to be a little bit lower because now the state's going to look at the 4-year cohort instead of just the graduates. And so those students obviously were not meeting college or career ready benchmarks, and that makes the number lower. But we still had almost 1.5% increase in that measure. Graduation rate. Graduation rate combines both the 4-year cohort. That means that when a student starts 9th grade, whether they're a student at Hoover City Schools or not, the day they start 9th grade, the clock starts ticking. They have to finish high school in 4 years in order to be counted as graduate in the 4-year cohort. If they're not, and they continue to stay in school with us, that's great. That's good for that kid and good for his future and our family. If we can get the kid graduated in 5 years, we get partial credit for that student. If it takes longer than 5 years, we don't get any credit. They're going to count as a dropout, but we still strive to help that student graduate. And for that student, that still needs to be a win whenever we can get it. We have seen, I do want to say that we have seen a slight decrease over the last 3 years here. And that is something, graduation rate is something I think we need to start looking at. The alarm's not ringing, but we've got kind of a drip problem there with students gradually falling off there. This is where our students are who did not graduate in 2017. Graduation rate's always 1 year backwards. And we did see a slightly larger number of dropouts in that group. I want to point out the missing records. Only 0.5%. That's amazing if you think about the number of kids and the transiency that we have. Keeping up with them and trying, a lot of these students will simply, they were with us in the spring and then in the fall, they're not with us anymore. They don't come back to school, and they're not living in Hoover anymore. We don't get any records requests. And our counselors literally stalk the students on social media and try to find them. And that's usually the best way that we actually are able to find and document where they've gone. So glad that number is as low as it is. In terms of intervention services, this is the students in that lowest 25% of the data. And this is our first year to be able to measure that. So at the beginning of the year in reading, 16% of our students were in that category. That means they were 2 or more years behind their grade level.
Is that all grade levels, Dr. Brown?
That is grades 2 through 10. Grades 2 through 10. In the fall, that was 16% for reading. By spring, we have reduced that to 13%. 14 of our schools showed a reduction, anywhere from 1 to 8% in that category. Mathematics, in the fall, it was 17% of the population. By spring, that had fallen to 13%. And all of our schools showed a reduction, anywhere from 1% to 10% in that area. Chronic absences. Students missing more than 15 days of school, excused or unexcused. And this is the category that hurt us the worst this year. We have a dramatic increase, if you will, in absences in 2017-18. So whereas our score in 2017 was 90.2%, with 9.8% of our kids being chronically absent, our estimate of this year is that number is going to be 12.9%, which is going to set us back to an 87.1% in that area. That's the largest decrease that we had in any of the categories measured for the report card. The addition of the English language learner category, this was added by the state to the report card matrix starting this summer. What this is doing is all of our English language students, once they've been with us for more than 1 year, they take a test every year that measures their English language proficiency. It's called Access 2.0. And based on that test, they either stay in the English language learner program for an additional year, or they test out and then get gradually weaned back into the regular population. And as of the 2017-18 school year, we were averaging about 47% of our students who were taking that test were testing out to go back to grade level. So that's the percentage of points we'll get on that part of the report card. The ACT, it doesn't actually count that much. It contributes toward college readiness, but the ACT itself for our graduating class is not in our accountability data. We always like to report it though. This year, the college board added a testing date in the summer, in July. So that data is not fully processed, and so we will not get this data until later in October. I will update this and share the copy on the website with everyone as soon as that graduating class data is added. Right now, that's all exits. So the state report card prediction. And again, I don't make any promises here, speculation alert. But based on the calculations and the information they've given us, this is my best prediction forward. Again, just pointing out the relative weights for a district score here, and you see that when they added that English language proficiency category, they took that 5% away from academic growth, which that was our strongest category. And they kind of took that category away from us a little bit. These are the weighting factors that I shared earlier. And the only one that changed is the academic growth category. That changed from how it was measured in Aspire. If you look, you see our academic growth is basically the same. Our achievements basically the same. College career readiness about 1% better. Graduation grade dropped about 0.5%. Chronic absence dropped 3%, because that was the one that hurt us the most. And then adding that English language proficiency, giving us 47% of 5 points. Add all that together, and we got the most frustrating report card ever, 89. And I want to go to the teacher and beg for some extra credit. But unfortunately, when the syllabus is put together after the school year is over, it's hard to argue for extra credit. But I hope I'm wrong. I was off by 1 point last year, so let's hope I'm off by 1 point this year as well. In looking at this data, my recommendations for what we need to work on are the following. Number one, chronic absence. This is what hurt us the most, and we need help. We need help from our parents and community in reducing absences. Remember, both excused and unexcused absences count in this category. Reading achievement. We've seen growth and improvement in our reading, but it is lagging behind the math game. 6 years ago, it was exactly the opposite. Our math data was far behind our reading data. And now our math data is kind of king of the hill across the board. And we need to bring that same life and vigor to our reading. So that is a focus for K-8 in terms of looking at that reading achievement, re-examining what we're doing, and seeing if we can find a better way to do it. Math achievement at the high school level, 9-12, our high schools made dramatic improvements this last year. I don't think I've ever seen as much improvement as I've seen in 1 year at both Spain Park High School and Hoover High School in 9th and 10th grade in mathematics. I really want to commend them, but there's still room to work there. We still have a lot of students who aren't proficient there and who still need attention, and we're still not seeing those results hit the 11th grade when the kids take the ACT for the first time. So that is something that we still need to focus on. Obviously, our English language learners, the state's last minute inclusion of this data makes it difficult to anticipate in terms of our budget for this year. You know, our budget, we get very little money for our EL program. We have to expend a lot more local money for that than we get from the state. And so we really need to look at that, what we're doing, what can we do differently, if that's going to be a report card category going down in the future. Of course, the graduation rate, looking at our pattern of small decreases and reviewing our credit recovery and dropout prevention strategies, just to make sure that we're not missing anything there that we could be doing to help keep kids in school. And that's it. Dr. Moore, it's your turn. Is there anything I can help?
Thank you, Dr. Dodge.
Thank you.
Board, any questions? Dr. Dodge?
You may want to review this, and we certainly may want to put it back on the agenda for any questions or follow-ups or discussion. Good time for me to thank Ron Dotson. Thank you for all the many, many years of working and presenting data. You'll be sorely missed doing this. We're so excited about Dr. Lamar coming in to be the new Ron, so to speak. But thank you, Ron, for all the work you've done for so many years in serving our school district. I too want to acknowledge Mr. Giangrosso and Mr. Hewlin and the success that you all have had at the high school. So kudos to you. And I think we'd mentioned that earlier, but it's worthy to say again. So thank you for the work and the attention.
Do you want to mention that downstairs?
Yes. As board members, you'll see under the dates of our next board meeting that we will need to have an overview of advanced ed. This is a requirement for our accreditation. There was a proposal from Advanced Ed that it be a 2-hour training, and I suggested to them I bet we could do it in an hour, and they went with me on it. But as you know, I believe it's February that our committee is coming to visit with us to review our school district, and so we need to make sure that you know what that looks like and what expectations there might be of you. That committee will probably sit down with some or all of you, or maybe attend a board meeting. So we'll just need to let them share with us what that looks like as far as your support and your work for that. So that'll be 4:15 on November the 13th, Mr. Kelly.
And that's not necessarily a public meeting.
Certainly our public is welcome. We'll probably meet in here and have Andre Harrison present to us in the boardroom. So certainly anyone who's interested in knowing more about Advanced Ed and the process for us would be welcome to be here.
That wasn't the best way to answer the question. I guess what I'm saying, if we're gonna be in quorum, just part of the board meeting or?
No, it's 4:15, more of a work session or an informational session for you than a board meeting.
Very good. Okay, our next regular board meeting will be Tuesday, November 13th at 5:30 p.m. If you'd like to come and see the Advanced Ed presentation at 4:15, please join us. Thanks to everyone for being here. A very important meeting, a lot of things covered, a lot of congratulations to everyone, and we're adjourned.